Hello all of you hellions, welcome or welcome back, whichever the case may be. For this week's shower curtain pick, I picked probably the most iconic that can be found on there. This is of course 1968, directed by George Romero, The Night of the Living Dead. If you haven't seen it, I guarantee you've heard of it. And if you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor and just watch it. Here it is on the shower curtain. Right there. Night of the Living Dead. If you're a fan of zombie movies, you have this one to thank, at least for part of it. While they were making this movie, the creators were trying to think of the most disturbing thing their zombies could do, and they came up with eating human flesh. Yep, this is the first movie where you actually see zombies eating people. This movie also brought us a way to kill these zombies. They were the first to say either shoot it in the head or find some other way of destroying the brain. Prior to this, zombies were primarily corpses that were reanimated using voodoo. They were used to exact revenge for their master. This movie was groundbreaking in so many different ways, but we'll get into that later. Heads up, there will be spoilers. Here we go. As I've said in previous videos, I absolutely love black and white movies, especially horror movies. To me, it's just another aspect of setting a creepy atmosphere. The film opens with siblings Johnny and Barbara driving 3 hours to a cemetery to place flowers on their father's grave. This is a real cemetery, by the way, which still receives many visitors who are fans of this movie. Johnny, seeing an old man walking in the distance and knowing Barbara has always been afraid of this cemetery, starts to tease her. I'm sure most of you have heard this.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Stop it! You're ignorant.
They're coming for you, Barbara.
Feeling bad that the man may have heard Johnny, Barbara goes to apologize and is then attacked. Johnny goes to help. After a moment of struggle, Johnny is killed. Seeing as Johnny had the keys, all Barbara could do was release the brake and roll slowly downhill. Interesting, this zombie can run. Kind of. Once the car rolls to a stop, Barbara takes off on foot and runs to a farmhouse with her zombie following behind. Looking around, Barbara makes a grisly discovery. This corpse was actually made by George Romero using ping pong balls as eyes. I love the look of this thing. Poor Barbara is thoroughly terrified and goes into shock. Just then, a truck pulls up to the house and out pops Ben. Now, George Romero has said that this part was not intentionally written for a black man, that Dwayne Jones read for the part and he was just perfect for it, so he was casted. I will get into why I bring this up later on in the video. Ben noticed a gas pump on the property, but it's locked. He asks Barbara if she has the key. Seeing she's in shock, Ben quickly takes control. His plan is to take the truck and try to find other people. Our original zombie has other plans, and using a rock, breaks out the truck's headlights. Ben sees even more zombies are arriving. Ben kills one of them and sets it on fire. Aha! We see they're afraid of fire. And seriously, am I the only one that thinks the music coming out of this music box is creepy? Ben, wanting to board up the house, asks Barbara to collect wood. Poor thing really is no help. Ben sets another fire to ward off the attacking zombies, and Barbara has a freak out. She wants to go get Johnny. Trying to bring her back to reality, we have this scene. Yup, more on this later on. Throughout the movie, updates are given by way of radio, which broadcasts at certain times. And now, the rest of the main cast. Turns out, there were more people down in the cellar. There is married couple, not given last names, Tom and Judy. Then the Coopers, Harry and Helen, and their young daughter Karen. Karen remains down in the cellar. She had been bitten and now has a fever and is quite lethargic, possibly shock. Now, Harry, you get the idea that he was the man in charge. He is determined that everyone stay down in the cellar, insisting it's the only safe place in the house. Ben absolutely refuses, believing they would just be trapped down there with no other escape if the zombies made it in.
Well, I still think we're better off up here. The cellar's a death trap.
Ben lets these people know that if they do decide to stay in the main part of the house...
Now, get the hell down in the cellar. You can be the boss down there. I'm boss up here.
Turns out there is a TV down in the cellar that is brought upstairs. With growing horror, they receive new information. It is here I'm going to mention that at no time in this movie are the zombies called zombies. They are instead primarily referred to as ghouls. So, for the remainder of this video, ghoul is what I will call them. The group find out that rescue stations are being set up in various locations. The closest is in the town of Willard, which is only a few miles away. And then the horrifying news. These ghouls are revived corpses, and those killed by the ghouls become ghouls themselves. And this reanimation happens within minutes. The recommendation after a person has died from a ghoul is to cremate the corpse immediately. And to kill a ghoul, you must shoot it in the head or find another way to destroy the brain. Having found the gas pump key, it is decided the best course of action would be to gas up the tank in the truck Ben arrived in. Then they can all ride to the town of Willard, where there is a medical center set up with the local police and the National Guard. Sounds reasonable. The plan. While Harry is upstairs throwing Mazel Tov, I'm pretty sure I'm saying that wrong, cocktails at the ghouls, Ben and Tom will go to the truck, fill it with gas at the pump they now have a key for, and come back. While this is going on, all that are staying in the house will board themselves up in the cellar. They unboard the door and start to execute the plan. Hiccup number 1. Judy suddenly decides she wants to go with. Hiccup number 2. In a panic, Tom lights the truck on fire. And hiccup number 3. Judy's jacket gets stuck. At least they died together. There are now many, many ghouls, and they waste no time eating the unfortunate couple. In this scene, the actors are eating roast ham covered in chocolate sauce, and apparently it was not at all appetizing. So apparently the people that did makeup for this would jokingly say they didn't have to apply makeup. All they had to do was feed the actors this, and they would turn pale and look ghastly. Ben makes it back to the house, but Harry makes no immediate move to let him in. Finally, Ben gets inside the house and shows how little he appreciated of being left outside. Back on the news, it was discovered that these ghouls are flesh-eating. The satellite that was returning from Venus was shot down, releasing radiation. This radiation is thought to be the cause of the corpse reanimation. However, this is never confirmed in the film. We also see the cavalry is on their way to the town of Willard. Harry gets his hands on the rifle Ben found earlier. There is a scuffle and Harry gets shot. As Harry makes his way down to the cellar, Helen is then attacked by ghouls, as the ghouls start breaking into the house. Breaking away, Helen makes her way to the cellar. Alright guys, this, to me, is the creepiest scene in the movie. Originally, Helen goes to the cellar to find that her husband Harry has died from his gunshot, reanimated, and was now eating their daughter Karen. However, it was thought that this scene was going to be too intense for viewers. So instead, Helen comes down to find Karen eating her father. Karen now turns to Helen. The shock and fear on Helen's face as her daughter slowly stalks her just brings this scene home. And the sounds, nail on the head, guys, could not have done this better. Just listen. Back upstairs, Barbara reunites with the ghoul from the cemetery, and finally with Johnny. The house is now swarming with ghouls. Ben has no choice but to go down into the cellar, the one room he absolutely refused to enter, and board himself in. The next morning, he hears gunshots as the cavalry have arrived. He goes to the window, rifle in hand, and just like that, the sole survivor is shot dead. The first time I watched this movie, I was around 10. This part hit me so hard. I thought Ben was about to be rescued. Then, using meat hooks, these men gather up all of the ghouls, including poor Ben, and pile them up. And look at that, Ben is laying head to head with our original ghoul. They then burn the pile. George Romero has said that his inspiration for this movie was a movie titled Carnival of Souls. Another great movie. Now, which is really cool because in a lot of different horror movies, you see in the background, they'll be playing Night of the Living Dead. Well, the same thing goes for Carnival of Souls. You can actually see that in the background in multiple horror movies. The original title for Night of the Living Dead was Monster Flick, and it was incredibly low budget. I believe they made it for somewhere around $114,000, and it grossed well over $30 million. This movie was a hit. It was so low budget, in fact, that multiple cast members had multiple roles. Carl Hardman, who plays Harry, he was actor, makeup artist, electronic sound effect engineer, and photographer. He took all the photographs that you see at the end of the movie during the credits. And he was one of the original few that donated $300 to this production. Originally, Tom Savini was hired to do the effects of this movie, but he was unavailable during that time because he was in Vietnam as an Army combat photographer. It would have been really cool to see what he would have done with this movie. However, I am not downplaying the effects that were used. I feel that especially for that time, they did a phenomenal job. Okay, so back to those scenes that I pointed out earlier in the video. George Romero and everybody who had worked on this movie all said that it was never meant to be the social commentary against racism that it is perceived to be. Again, they casted Dwayne Jones not because he's African American, but honestly because he was the best for the part. As a matter of fact, throughout filming, Dwayne was rather concerned with his character's reactions and emotions. So this character was originally written to be very angry and very take control, just like we see in the movie. But Dwayne wasn't sure how audiences would take to a black man taking control of a house that is all white people. He was very concerned about that, and especially when he had to strike Barbara. He tried talking to George Romero saying, can we please pull this back? But in the end, they all felt, no, he's written to be this way, and this is going to be the most impactful for the film. So they left it in there. Now, I personally am very happy that they left all of this in because, again, I don't think that it would be as powerful of a movie if you would have toned down Ben's persona, Ben's character. However, Dwayne Jones was right for the backlash. This movie got a lot of criticism based on these aspects that Dwayne Jones was afraid of. He was right. And unfortunately, there was a lot of racism in the 60s, which, if you think about it, wasn't that long ago. In fact, the day the film was complete, it was April 4th, 1968. Romero and writer John Russo threw the film into the trunk and took off for New York to see if they could find anybody that would pick it up and show it. On their way, on the radio, they heard about the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. Very rough times. So again, Dwayne Jones had legit reason for his concerns. But there is positive to this too, obviously. This movie was one of the first to depict graphic murder. It was also one of the first movies to have a black leading man. The world premiere of this movie was invite only and received a standing ovation. So many people loved it. It was released October 1st, 1968, and seeing as how the movie rating system didn't start until November 1st of 1968, this was one of the last films in America to be released without a rating. At that time, I wonder what the rating would have been. Guys, this movie truly is excellent. The actors do an amazing job with all of the emotions, and their emotions go up and down. There is so much going on during this movie. And the ghouls, guys, they are fantastic. The makeup was very well done. Everything about them, you feel that they really are the living dead. And the story really flows. There was not a moment that I felt like any of it was dragging. It all just went from scene to scene to scene, just boom, boom, boom. And the whole thing, it just had amazing flow. This film, honestly, could not have been any better. I am obviously giving it 5 coffins. As always, thank you all for watching. I very much appreciate it. And if you like this kind of content, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Stick around for a while, and I'll see you next time.